In this video, we're going to talk about a technique that you can use in your grids to use an auto suggest or an edit combo in place of situations where you might otherwise have used a drop-down box. So if you look here, we have a very simple grid that is based on the order details table from the Northwind sample database. And you can see here that one of the fields in that we have here is product ID. So when the user would be entering a new record, they would be forced to type in a product ID. Now obviously you would prefer them to choose from a list of product names, because no one is going to remember product IDs off by heart. So in the second grid over here, what we've done is we've gone to the product ID field, we've turned it into a drop-down box, and then we've specified here that the choices are dynamic, that the data is coming from SQL Server Northwind's database, and in the builder here we specified that we'd like to display data from the products table, we'd like to display the product name but store the product ID. So now when we go ahead now and we run the grid, you can see now that even though the column is labeled product ID, what we see in the grid are the product names, and then the drop-down box has a list of all the product names that you can choose from, and then you can fill something in. And when you basically go ahead here and save that record, even though we're displaying the product name, what's being stored internally is the product ID. So the drop-down box in effect is decoding the product ID and displaying the product name. So this technique is fine if you've got say a limited number of records to display in the drop-down box, but in some applications you might have thousands or even tens of thousands of records, and so a drop-down box is not practical because all of the data that's displayed in the drop-down box needs to be sent to the client, and in order for it to display, and in this case we've got 10 rows of data, so in fact the same list of choices got sent to the browser over the internet for each of the 10 rows. So an alternative technique might be to display to use an auto suggest box as where the user can just type in the first few characters, say, of the product name, pick from a list of matching product names, but then have behind the scenes Alpha 5 fill in the product ID. So using an auto suggest though is a little bit more complicated in this case than a drop-down box. So let's go ahead now and see how we can actually do that. Okay, so I've gone back now and created a brand new grid on the order details table, and you can see here when I run it, basically there's the product ID field. So the first thing that we're going to do is join this table with the products table so that we can get the product name for a given product ID. So since this is a SQL backend, we're going to do a join. If this was a DBF, we'd just simply create a view. So I'm going to go here and change from a table to a select statement, and then I'm going to go straight into the query builder. And the first table that I'm going to select is the order details, which is the table that we previously were building the grid on. And then we're going to go here and join in the product table, and we want to join on the common product ID field over there. And then let's go to columns. So from order details we want those fields, and then from the products table we only care about the product name column over there. So let's go ahead now and then click OK, and then click OK. Now let's go down to our fields, and let's just remove all the existing fields and choose these fields, and then let's move product name up after product ID. So now if we go and let's just save this as order details